Hi, good morning. I'm Val Grubb. Thank you for joining me this morning at an unheard of 9 a.m. I am delighted to be representing ABWA this morning, and we're going to talk about negotiation tips for women. So let's open up your Q&A. I know it's early to be participatory, but we do it all, right? That's how women roll. So let's open up that Q&A. That'll help you. By the way, I'm going to take questions all throughout the presentation. So if there's anything you've got, go ahead and whip it out. Start typing it in there now. But let me just get a feel for where everybody's at right now. Talk in your Q&A. When I talk about negotiations, when I say, gosh, you got to go in and negotiate a raise. You got to go in. You got to negotiate a contract. What's the first word that pops into your head? The first word that pops into your head when you think about negotiations. Where is it? Type those into the Q&A. Let's take it. I know, participating this early in the morning, Thursday of a conference, but we can do it. So what is the first word that pops into your head? Oh, all right. All right. So I'm seeing some comments here. Ugh, that's a good one. Complicated, nervous. All right. I'm not hearing a lot of positive, complicated, nervous, barfing. What? Who wrote that? Who wrote barfing? All right, I get it. Intimidating, hard. Yeah, not a lot of love for negotiations in there, is there? And that, I think, is no fun. All right, not fun. Wow, intimidating. And I think that's the challenge. Discussion, love it. Exactly. All right. Anxiety. All right. Goodness sakes. So aren't you, I'm feeling the love coming my way. I'm feeling the love here this morning that everybody's excited about this conversation. Well, let me walk through, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time. If we can go back to the slides, thank you. Yeah, so let's look. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the challenges because we know what those are. But I think that it is worthwhile talking about a few things that are unique to women. First is that we can be deemed unlikable. Isn't that interesting? For sticking up for ourselves. And I think it kind of goes with this, with item 3 on here, is that we're kind of socialized to avoid being assertive. And now the great thing is, you know, as I look at money doesn't necessarily define us, we undervalue our own worth. The great thing that I will say, as somebody who does a lot of recruiting for positions, give ourselves a pat on the back, because I can tell you that we are beating these attitudes out of the younger generation. So your daughters, your nieces, your mentees, the group that's coming up, this Gen Z, millennials, we are beating that out of them so that they do understand that standing up for yourself, for understanding your value and going in there and demanding it, that's your right just because of the fact of being here. So again, what we have to think about is if you look at this list and go, oh yeah, that feels a little, feels like it's hitting the mark just a little bit. We want to come back and you want to focus on that, figure out what that is, and then beat that down. Get that out of you, because this is what's going to come in and hold you back. That is going to, and also what I would say is that it's just not needed anymore. It's not needed anymore, and this is the trigger, this is what's in your head, and what we want to come in and focus on getting rid of. Now, I will say, has anybody read Sheryl Sandberg's book? God, she's the woman who coined that lean in. She worked for Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, so she's COO at Facebook. And she wrote this book about leaning in, and she tells this story. And Zuckerberg really went on and on about negotiations. I guess she was a tiger in the initial negotiating her initial salary and benefits and all of this. And she could read the room that he was having issues with it, that he was having problems. And what she very wisely reminded him was that think about how I'm going to be when I'm working for you at Facebook as your number 2, and I'm across the negotiation table with whoever we need to negotiate with. So she was able to take this concern, take this challenging situation and remind him that this may be uncomfortable, but we're going to come in and it's going to be to your value, to the value of the organization, to the value as you as the leader, to have me as your number two. So remember that when you get that angsty, if you feel, one thing I think that we are very good at as women is that we can sense when things are going downhill across the room. And it's our opportunity to come in and say, hey, look, if we need to take a break, but, as I think about negotiating salaries, like I need this raise, I deserve this raise, of somebody who comes in and states the fact of, look at all of the great things that I have done for you and for this organization, for our department, and how the fact of how that's going to continue as we think about and as we talk about my value. I bring this same ferocity to the passions that I have, the things that I'm doing for you in this department and in this organization. So, and we have to, it's really interesting because it's a chick thing that we undervalue our worth. And I think that comes back to the fact that money just isn't a primary motivator. Yeah, it's motivating. We need enough money to live. But, and again, these are all generalities, right? But it is about the fact that money does show worth. I was really happy when it was deemed illegal to ask somebody what they're paid. So somebody shouldn't ask you that when you're job interviewing. And the reason for that is, again, that's just not a primary motivator. And we have typically been to a situation where we don't go in there and we don't insist on what we need to get, and what we should get. And again, I'm very excited to say that in interviewing younger generations, we're beating that out of them. That we are coming in and showing them that they have value, you understand that value, you know your worth, and you go in there like a tigress and you demand it. And if you don't get it, then you roll. So very positive things that we're seeing. Now let's talk about, we'll go through four things here. I'll go through four things. And again, if you've got questions, please do whip them out at any point. We're going to get to all of your questions. First off, let's talk about this developing confidence. I think a lot of times we miss that as women. We get in our head. Who does that? You get in your head and you're going, oh God, it's definitely more women who get that imposter syndrome, that we get into a position and we go, God, I hope they don't find out that I may not exactly know what I'm doing. And let me give you a very stark example of this. Men, when applying for positions, need to know 20% of a job description, understand it, know they can do it, and they'll come back and apply and say, heck yeah, I'm the person for this job. Women need 80%. They need to understand 80% of a job description before they come back and will come in and say, yeah, I can do this job. Isn't that interesting? We get in our head the fact that I'm just not quite good enough. I saw this in action this weekend. Met a couple lady friends for lunch. We went afterwards, a fourth person joined us, and one of the women was, I'll call her Susie. So Susie's looking for her next opportunity. For 45 minutes to an hour of the lunch, all she did was come in and tell us, again, here's my qualifications, here's what I'm really great at. Like I said, really some great stuff on her resume. So the fourth woman comes and joins us, and guess what? They're looking for a head of PR and communications. PR, marketing, communications, all this. What does Susie whip out? Oh, I've never done PR. I just looked at him like, and then just went on to go on emphasizing what she couldn't do. And I said, time out. You just spent an hour regaling us with everything that you can come in and do. And you're focused on the fact that 20% of the job description is also PR. It's a school. How much PR are they doing? And yet, here's what she focused on. Focus on that, and it was like I'd smacked her upside the head, which, to be honest, I kind of felt like it. Because think about, like, she lost that confidence in the moment when it mattered. In the moment when it was her opportunity to come in and say, oh my God, tell me about your marketing. Tell me what it is. Tell me about the communications. Yeah, I can. Oh gosh, yeah, I do that. Let me tell you how I do that. Oh, okay, PR. So what exactly do you do in public relations? You know, it's not an area that I've focused in, but I'm familiar with it. That's all you got to say. But instead, lead out. Oh no, I've not done. No, you know what? I've not done PR before. Holy cow! Could not. I was gobsmacked at how that's what she led out with. And how many times do we do that? How many times do we come back and instead of looking at it and saying, God, I'm good at this. No. Instead we come back and we say, you know, I'm not good at this. We need to stop that. We need to stop that. We need to cut that out of our vocabulary. I need you to develop confidence. Part of that is attitude. If you think you can't, you are right. And that's the challenge. If you say to yourself, I can't do this, you're right. Because your attitude is going to determine your outcome. So we need to walk in saying, I can do this. My best friend in Indiana constantly says, oh, God, I can't do technology. I can't do technology. I got to admit, that's not my strength. I got strengths, that's not one of them. But I can tell you that I've never come back and said, I can't do this. And thank God, because between March, 14th and 16th, 100% of my business canceled. I'm a live presenter. It's what I do. I do live trainings. 100% of my business canceled through August. I had to figure out how to get those online. And again, technology is not a strength of mine. But at no point did I come back there and say that I can't do this. I can tell you that it will take me longer. It will take me reading more. I will make more mistakes. There will be a boatload of cussing, but I will figure it out. I will figure it out. It will just be harder for me. And again, the challenge is that your attitude will directly affect your outcome. So if you come in and say, I can't, you're right. I also say, now, when I was 8, I told my mom I wanted to be a prima ballerina. I saw the Nutcracker for the first time, said, I want to be a ballerina. Okay, I was wrong. All right, that was a can't situation. That you know, and that was pretty apparent because, I don't know, you got to like practice and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. But outside of that, outside of being a prima ballerina, you can do it. It will just take you longer. Understand and build that confidence. What I would say is that I do 2 things to help me with confidence. 2 tips that I want to give you. The first is gratitude. I do come in and I say when I get, and particularly right now, right? Right now it can be very challenging to keep a positive attitude. So what I wake up every morning and I say, what are 3 things that I'm very thankful for today? What are 3 things that I am thankful for today? I woke up this morning, thankful to be alive. I'm thankful that I have this opportunity to come down here and share some stories with you over a little fireside chat. And I'm thankful about the fact that I do have a little bit of work. It's not my usual amount, but I'm thankful that I got a little bit. I say also before I go to bed, I say 3 things that I'm grateful for this day. Why? Because I want a positive mindset before I go to bed. And I can tell you I have challenges sleeping. I find it's worse if I go to bed thinking about all the things that I didn't do, that are still on my plate, that are still outstanding. If I focus on that, now my mind's churning. Instead of coming back and saying, I did my best, I got this done, I solved that problem. As women, we focus on the negative, more so than we come back and say, God, I did a great job today. When was the last time you told yourself that? When was the last time you told yourself, God, Val, you're good. You're good. I'm all right. And that's the challenge. We don't do that enough. And what we do is we get into this negative attitude. Now, what I'll tell you is I got a reframing strategy. I do it all the time when I'm following myself swirling, 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 swirling. I come in and I say, what are the facts? So let's think about it. Your boss calls you in, wants to talk to you. Oh, God, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. Well, what are the facts? The facts are that he called me in. How do I feel about that? What's my perception? I feel anxious. My perception is that I've done something wrong, and that's what he's going to talk about. But what do I really know? What I know? The only thing that I know, a more realistic truth to this, is that he wants to talk about something that I have no idea what he wants to talk about or what she wants to talk about. So get out of my head. Stop that formation of stories in my head, because the challenge is, in most instances, those stories aren't good. In most instances, those stories aren't good. And we sort of explode the fact that, wow, that didn't go well. We'd be called out on the carpet. And that's the challenge. We got to get out of that. We have to think about being gracious for what we have. We also have to come back and reframe negative thoughts, because that's going to help us with confidence. Now, some physical things that you can do. Stand tall. Take up space. Anybody seen Amy Cuddy? Amy Cuddy, she does this thing on taking up space. She's got a great TED Talk on it. Talks about sort of assuming this Wonder Woman position, or whatever position that makes you feel tall, that makes you take up space. What you don't want to do is don't walk into a room, slink in, don't say hi to anybody, you kind of slink in, you slide into a seat on the outside of the room. No. You walk in, you take up space, you sit at the table, because that's where you belong. It's where you belong. Whether you say something or not, I need to sit at that table. Stand tall, take up space. Project your voice. If you have a high voice, it is seen that you can come in and be more authoritative if you can lower your voice. Not all the time. You know that, again, it is about being authentic. But if you're struggling, if you're having challenges, then change things up. Change things up. Look people in the eye. Keep your voice steady. If you ever want to see how people are showing trust in how they're presented, show the fact of if somebody presents something, if their voice wavers, people will ask more questions, because they think that the speaker doesn't exactly believe in what it is that they're saying. Finally, speak up in meetings. Leaders speak up in meetings. Leaders ask questions. Leaders have a point and they share it. Leaders come in and they speak up in meetings, and that's confidence. I had a coachee that said that everybody interrupts one another, like I guess it's pure chaos in these meetings, and she can't get her thoughts out there. I suggested to her a couple things. Number one, ask your boss if you can run the meeting. If you're running it, now you do have the floor. Ask the leader if they'll specifically call on you. Talk to the decision maker beforehand. I've sent out emails beforehand. I'm excited that we're all getting together because I want to share this idea. That way you're setting yourself up that you're going to come in, and you're going to share an idea. If somebody interrupts you, you look and you go, hang on, Bob, let me finish my thought. I'll be done in just a second. Blah, 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 blah. Bob, thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing what you got to say. So do those sorts of things. Again, speak up in meetings. And if you're nervous, rewind in your head. Think about a time when you really nailed it. When you really, really nailed it. And have that picture in your head before you walk into a meeting. Before you walk into a meeting so that you can nail it. All right, I'm going to share a story here. It's about confidence. It's a little spicy for 9:30 in the morning. I'm warning you right now. But it really 100% goes to the fact of what I'm talking about confidence. I learned this at sadly, a very young age. 25. My undergrad's in engineering. I work for an aircraft engine manufacturer in Indianapolis. I was 25 and leading the RFP, the request for proposal process, for a $48 million test stand, aircraft engine test stand. I worked for an aircraft engine manufacturer. We were down to the 2 finalists. We went and did site visits to both of them. Myself, 3 other engineers, all male. Company in Minnesota saw me coming a mile a minute. Went out, had drinks. Woo, woo, woo. Guess what I did? Oh, yes, I did. I slept with the owner's son. Good move. Yeah. So, all right, no big deal. That's called a Tuesday in New Orleans here, right? Got a call the day before, so both companies coming in. No big deal. Fun time, had a great time. Day before, they're coming in. Both finalists are coming in for a final presentation and award. They call me, the company from Minnesota, and tell me that if I don't sway the vote their way, they're going to tell my boss that I slept with the owner's son. I am terrified. I could hardly breathe. I was so out of my mind. I've just finished college. I'm in a boatload of debt. I got to tell my parents whose dream it is that I go be an engineer. I'm the first one getting into college. Like, I am beside myself. I'm shaking. I'm convinced that I'm going to have to go in and resign. So I reached out to my mentor. Great negotiator, owned his own company. I reached out to him and I said, I need to meet. Shaking. First thing he asked, he said, did they have pictures? I'm like, I don't know what's going on. He said, no. Did they send you pictures? I said, no. He said, then they have nothing. It's all they're doing is they know that you're young and they're jamming you with it. If they had pictures, they'd have sent you one. He said, you walk in there with unequivocal confidence. You look them in the eye and say, what information? You had a point yesterday. Would you like to share it with the group? Because it is your word against theirs. And he said, they're never going to come forward with that and share that. And I just said, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that I can do that. And he said, yes, you can. He said, put your big girl panties on and walk in there and own that room. You are in charge of this. And there's no way they can come in and take that away. Went home, thought about that, and I thought, I have no other choice. I have no other choice but to walk in here and do that. Or I come back and I tell my boss that I've slept with them and that I have to resign because I'm now compromised. I wasn't, because I knew that they weren't going to get the job to begin with. I walked in there, and you know what I did? I did exactly that. They did their presentation. Next day, they came back, had like 12 phone calls of them trying to call me that day and that night. Didn't take any of them. Blocked my phone. Went in the next day. Thank you, gentlemen. You did not get the contract. And I said, Bob, you had some information. We talked a couple days ago on the phone. Would you like to share that with the group? I'd be delighted for you to share it. I owned the room. I owned my emotions. I owned where I was at right then. And that was just, I walked in there, supreme confidence that no matter where the chips fly in this, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I may have lost my job, but I will find another job. I will survive this. And it's that confidence that got me through right then. And I know that sounds crazy, but I can tell you it's the only thing I walked in there with. It's the only thing I walked in there with. I went out that night after we were done, after I blew chow in the bathroom because I was so tense. I walked out that night and partied my brains out. But I remembered that lesson from then on. I'm telling you that confidence can carry you more so than anything. And if you have confidence in yourself and your abilities, you will survive. You will survive. You will get through where you're at. So remember that. Well, don't remember my story. I always say, I love this saying. I've never been able to attribute it to somebody, and it says, it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. Let me say that one more time. It's not. It's never. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you aren't that holds you back. So remember that. Get out of your head if you suffer from confidence. Next Now, one of the things that I have found that has helped me with confidence is this next we're going to talk about, is preparation. Now, in preparation, so I'm a professional negotiator. I get hired to, I've done union contracts, other stuff. So I do this, like I said, this is a role I'm really comfortable with. I figure if you almost get fired for sleeping with the boss's son, it's like, it's all downhill from here. Yeah, it's all easy from here. But preparation is what helps me. Now, on average, so for an hour in the negotiation rooms, professional negotiators, how many hours do you think people spend preparing? So for every hour of negotiations, for a professional negotiator, how long do you think that they prepare? How long? How many hours? An hour? Let's go. All right, we got that Q&A still open? So for an hour in the negotiating table, how long do you prepare? All right, seeing some interesting comments here. Let me tell you this, 10 hours. So for every hour that you are in, 2 hours, nice, I like it. What I would say is come in there 8 hours, good, all right. What I would say is that it's actually 10 hours. 10 hours for every hour that you spend in the negotiating, you're going to prepare 10 hours. That level of preparation gives you confidence. That level of preparation gives you the confidence. And what it does, when you want, as you prepare, keep in mind that what you want is only half of the equation. What you want is only half of the equation. Your problem is what the other person wants. That's the challenge, right? That's what you really got to keep in mind, because it's what's in their head and what they want that as you prepare, that's where we need to think about. That's where we need to come in and plan our negotiation. Plan what it is that we're going to say. I do something called an if-then matrix. I will come in and say, okay, I want a raise. Always a good thing. I want a raise. When I go in and talk to my boss, I come in and I prepare. I come in and I do all my preparations. Then I come in and say, all right, my boss is going to say no. I'm going to say why. What are all the reasons that she could come in and say no to me? Well, it's because I haven't been here long enough, my skill set. Come up with all of those reasons. Think from her perspective why she could come in and say no. This is where an if-then statement is useful. Because if she says this, then I will respond with this. And that's how we prepare. If she says that, well, gosh, I've got employees who have been here longer than you. So, I run the risk of them quitting. Well, okay, I hear you. I bet you that is. Her problem is my problem. So, and by the way, that's real. That's a real situation. And as a manager, you got to keep that in mind. How do I solve her problem? How do I come in and have an answer to solve her problem? I understand this, and so when they come to you, here is how you could justify that based on the amount, the workload that I'm going for, the amount of workload that I have, the quality of the work. Solve her problem. Give her the answers to why it will be okay for her to promote me and leave those folks who have been here longer. Solve the problem for her. That's how an if-then it is. If she says this, then I say this. If she responds with this, then I will say this. Come in, and if she says, well, all right, I hear you. I said, well, would you like to think about what more ammunition can I give you that can help you overcome with these two individuals who are going to have a cow that you've just promoted me versus somebody else? Solve her problem. Keep the conversation going. Keep it going through an if-then statement. And again, it is about the fact that it's her problem is my problem. Her problem is your problem. My strategies, I always also, in addition to doing if-then, figuring out why she's going to say no, I also have trade-offs. I have alternatives. I come in with with alternative suggestions. So I helped to found the women's cable channel, the Oxygen Network. We had more money on paper than in the bank. And when we first founded, when you first start a company, a lot of companies want their cash quick because, it's, like I said, all companies want their money quick, right? Who am I kidding? I remember we negotiated a deal with Staples, and they wanted invoice. I said, I don't want to pay in 30 days. I want to pay in 90 days. What's it going to take for us to come in and be able to pay these invoices in 90 days? And they said, an act of God. And I said, all right. Well, Oprah is one of our founders. And isn't she, this, how about if you use her logo? How about if you be is there value in the fact that you can be the official supplier to Oprah Winfrey's Oxygen Media? And they said, you know what? That may have just moved a mountain there. So again, come in there with trade-offs, alternatives. Come in there. And what we settled on was we settled 60 days. Couldn't do 90. And they asked if we could do the first 2 invoices paid immediately. And I said, absolutely. In fact, we'll put them on my credit card right now. And so, again, it is this option to come in that I have these trade-offs. I've thought about, they're going to want it quick. What do I have? What do I have in my back pocket that can come in and sweeten the deal? I helped, when I went out on my own, helped a company negotiate with Armani. Fancy. They were selling Gilt Group. They took, they're like a TJ Maxx, that they take these, they take end-of-life clothes and then they come back and sell them. And they had a heck of a deal. And so we went to Italy, and because we were buying direct, cut out the middleman, and we were going to do it, but they wanted us to buy, so of course, they've got the nice, beautiful black skirts that we're going to sell in about 30 seconds, but we also had to take the weird orange thing that they had tried and that had pretty much failed. So understanding the alternatives, we negotiated the price down cheaper, and what we did is we took our tax write-off and we donated the crazy orange thing. So again, it is understanding those trade-offs and knowing what you've got to give. I also do objective criteria. So you go in and ask your boss for a raise. By the way, who's got questions out there? Don't you think I forgot? I'm going to take live questions, so please bring them up. We do objective criteria. So when you're looking at, so if you come in and say to your boss, I want a raise. Well, why do you think you should get that raise? You can't walk in there with just because. You can't walk in there with time, because time doesn't necessarily equate to anything. But what I can do is come in there and say, I can look at Glassdoor, and somebody at my level with my years of experience, this is the average raise. So understand, having objective versus subjective criteria. Having that in here is going to come in and help you to present your case. So again, think of objective versus subjective criteria. I just saw a question that says how to keep your voice steady when you are nervous. 100%, several things actually. Slow down. We have a tendency to speed up. Speeding up can make your voice stick, so slow your cadence down. Take space in between words. Think of how I'm presenting now. It is slow, but it keeps my voice steady. I'm nervous, can't you tell? I'm nervous up here. But slow it down, and it can help you to keep your voice steady. Think about lowering your voice as well. I know that sounds goofy, but it's a trick to get you out of your head of thinking about, oh God, I'm nervous. Instead of thinking about slow it down and keep my cadence slow and also lower my voice so that it projects better. The other piece that I would say is practice. I practice every presentation, and I give 200 presentations a year. I always practice. And that doesn't mean practicing in my head. I remember the first time I fired somebody. A lot happened in my 20s at that aircraft engine manufacturer. That was the first time I had to fire somebody, and I was so, like, I could hardly get the words out because I was stammering and stuttering, and thank God, you know, Bob looked at me and he goes, "Val, are you firing me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Bob, I am. I can't say it." And he looked and he said, "Val, say it. Bob, you're fired." And here was this gentleman mentoring me in the moment, but he knew it was coming. He'd known it was coming for a long time. And and he said, "Say it again, say it again." And I have to admit, by the fourth time that I said it, it was a lot easier than the first time that I said it. And I could actually now look him in the eye and say, "Bob, you're fired. We don't need your services here anymore." And that was, I have created brilliant scripts on paper. I've created brilliant scripts in my head. Opening your mouth is way different. So you get up there and you practice that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't memorize it, because then you come back and if you forget something, it'll throw you off. But if you come in and you practice it, you practice hearing the sound of your voice, sharing this information, that will come in and help you. Hopefully let me know if there's any couple nuggets in there that can help with. How do you negotiate changing your title due to extra work you've put in during this pandemic? Not focusing on a raise because everybody's budget is tight. I would come in, I think that it is the key about when it comes to negotiating raises, title changes, I always have a tendency to come in and, again, looking at objective criteria of looking at, here was my title, here is what I have done, and my question would be, I would see, how long is this going to stand? Because what my boss, again, thinking about how my boss could say no, she's going to say, "Oh, no, this is just a temporary thing. This is just a temporary thing that during this, and then when all this mess is over, I'm going to, your responsibilities will drop back down." In that instance, the next thing out of my mouth would be, "Great, then hopefully you're going to bonus me," if that's truly what's going to happen. Now, if the title meant more to me, then I would come back and say, "Well, actually, Bob, I don't want to give this up. I'm kicking ass at this. Oh, dang it, I wasn't going to cuss. Ugh, I'm kicking buns at this right now. I'm doing amazing work. I don't want to give it up." And the great thing is this way you can focus on other things. You don't have to do this stuff because I'm doing such a great job at it. You told me that. You told me that yourself. So how is it, and let's talk about these 5 things. And as I have looked up other job descriptions and also compared it to others in other departments, this really is to a point where, where my title, I think that my title is really reflective of an elevated title would be very reflective of these additional responsibilities. Now, if you're, I would come in, again, and I'm going to push you a little bit in there. I hear you come in and say that budgets are tight, I'm not going to go after any more money. You got a title change. Why wouldn't that entail more money? I'm going to throw down to you, this comes back to undervaluing, also understanding that money is not. You go in for both of them. Go in for money and the title. Maybe you will come back and say, well, as an alternative, all right, I'll just take the title change. But oh, by the way, I'm going to come after money. Would you be amenable in 6 months or a year when all this mess is over that we can come in and go after money as well? Because, all of this stuff that I'm taking over, this is money matters. It'll make a big difference. So I'm going to push you a little bit on that. Go in and ask for both. Go in and ask for both. When your boss chokes, you can always give something up, but never undervalue the service that you're bringing in right now. Great question. Good luck. I hope I find out how that goes. I hope I find out. I hope you get that title change. One more question, and then I'm going to come back and go back to my list. So what happens if you ask for too much and are immediately turned down? How do you know if you're asking too much or too little? Gosh, what a great question, right? I mean, what a great question. Let me tell you how I know. So in doing virtual programs, I know I've asked too little because I'm too booked. I'm too booked. I made the mistake. I'm charging $1,500 for an hour's worth of work, and I'm too booked. So I goofed up. I undervalued myself. And I just feel like, and I negotiate for a living, and I feel like kicking myself in the pants. So what am I doing? I'm beating myself up. But then I'm going forward, and I'm saying, no, actually now it's $2,500 a month. So understand that, and it was, I did the research, couldn't figure it out, did the research, and like I said, I goofed. So, and you're right, if they come in and somebody immediately says yes to what you're asking for, you ask for too little. You ask for too little. Now, if they come back and go, oh my God, wow, no, we can't do any of that, absolutely not. What you want to do is you want to engage them in a communication. You want to get a dialogue. You want to ask why. However, what I would pose is I never suggest to say just why, because that's like harkens back to like, I think of my nieces at like 3. Why? And I'm like, at some point you just go, 'cause I said so. That's why. Don't do that. Instead, what I would suggest that you say, tell me what's making you nervous about saying why. Tell me what it is about my proposal that you got to say no to it right now. Get them engaged in a dialogue. Because you can't argue with no. What you can negotiate with is the why, is their reasonings. Oh, you're just asking for too much. It's just, we just don't have that kind of money right now. Okay, we've had an outstanding quarter. What's your response to that? If they say this, then you say what? So get them engaged in dialogue. I hear that you're nervous right now. You've just flat said no. I'd love you to share your reasoning behind that, just because that's going to help me learn. Oh, all right, okay. So we don't have that time, blah, 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 whatever they, now come back and get that. It's in that why is where you negotiate. It's in the why is where you come in, and you got wiggle room to start maneuvering them. If they won't talk to you, then it's hard to come back and overcome. So I always suggest, back to your question about how do you know if you're asking too much or too little, I always suggest to prepare. Do as much as you can for preparation so that you can understand. Try to get more data comes in and helps you know, am I in the ballpark or am I shooting for the stars? And when it comes to, and I'm kind of making some assumptions here, is that you're asking for title, money, something that's very personal to you, I would have data. I would come in and have data to say, Susie, I understand that you're uncomfortable with this right now, but I've done a lot of research that shows that what I'm asking for is not out of the ballpark. Can you help me understand, what's it going to take for you to come in and say yes? What's your hesitations right now with what it is that I'm proposing, and how do we come back? How do I turn that into a yes? So again, and part of this is, having done this myself, having had these negotiations myself, I figured out that I was asking so much that I was going to come in and be making more than my boss. Making more than my boss. That, her problem is my problem. Her problem is my problem. So I said to her, all right, how about if you and I work on getting you promoted, getting you a raise, so then we can come back and level me up. What do you think about that? So I'm solving her problem to eventually get my problem solved as well. All right, so we have talked about preparation. Again, this whole if-then matrix, all of this. So let's talk about, and again, this practice out loud. I never want to come in and just have it in my head or have it down on paper, because I've had some amazing conversations in my head, and then what comes out of my mouth, it's like, oh my God. That's so not what I meant. All right, let's talk about effective communications. So the first part, one of my most effective negotiating tools is active listening. You may be thinking, what? That negotiation is about the words that come out of your mouth. Yes, but really what it's about is understanding their problem, because their problem is my problem. And if I want somebody to appreciate what I care about and my interests, I have to listen to their interests. I have to hear what they're saying. And then what you do, I solve their problem with my idea. Oh, I can't say yes to this right now. We can't really say, yeah, we can't move forward with this project right now because of X, Y, and Z. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Lisa, I didn't realize that I hadn't solved that issue. Let me tell you how what I'm proposing solves that. Here is how it's going to be. Their problem is your problem. So go in there, listen to what they have to say, spit back your idea, solving their problem. That's how they come in and go, oh, and oh my God, that's a great suggestion, Lisa. Great suggestion. Let me tell you how we can tweak what I'm proposing to take care of that too. Just like when your boss says that, gosh, I can't promote you because I've got two other people in the department. I've got two other people in the department who've been here longer. All right, let me give you some words. What's going to resonate in this? I'm going to come in and tell you that I'm doing quality work, better work, more work. I'm taking on supervisory roles, bigger projects, bigger money, solve her problem. How to negotiate. Let me answer this. Let me go through a couple more here, and then I'm going to come to you. How to negotiate with somebody who's not willing to negotiate or compromise at all. One piece that I will say is that understand that negotiations are rarely one and done. Not for the big stuff. For the big stuff, like think about it. When I've been part of a couple UAW, United Auto Workers negotiations. It's months that these negotiations go on. Months that these negotiations go on. Big stuff is rarely one and done. Walk out with the idea to continue to talk about it. So for somebody who is not willing to negotiate, not willing to compromise, I'd freshen up your LinkedIn profile. That's what I would wink, wink suggest, because they sound like a terrible person. What I would suggest, I come back in, and I've worked for bosses who get it in their head how to solve something, and they won't come in and really listen to other ideas. So what I started doing was sort of taking advantage of that and figuring out, I would ask questions, what do you think about X? What do you think? What I was trying to do is make it their idea, and in their idea was how I would come in and succeed. Because it had to be their way or no way. So what I had to do was to convince them that it's their idea. So I would say it was kind of an end run, that you can't take somebody on face-to-face because they're not willing to negotiate or compromise. Perfect. Get them to say that it is their idea. Hey, what do you think of doing this? Oh, God, yeah, because, I read this study that says that this could be, I thought this was kind of interesting, and I know that this is something that you care about. I've done them many times. Hey, you had this great idea. You said something in the meeting last week that kind of sparked this idea, and I know it's kind of yours, and I just thought we could flush it out. Again, I'm coming in. I'm not trying to take them head on. I'm coming in around, and what I say that people who are like that, who are unwilling to negotiate, unwilling to compromise, how do you get it to be their idea? How do you get it to be their idea? Because then they're going to be 100% behind it. And again, what I look at that and say that it is, I like the fact of just getting my way. So if I need to be right, then it can be hard to work with somebody who doesn't compromise or won't negotiate. But if instead what I want is my idea approved, then I'll do what it takes to get it through. All right, now, when it comes to back to effective communications, one of the biggest things I can say is to clear your mind. Be present. I understand lots and lots and lots of problems, lots of things going on in your head. When you're in a negotiation, you got to let all that go. And you have to figure out how to keep your emotions in check. Got to figure out how to keep your emotions in check, because the moment you got those emotions creeping in there, they're going to own you. And they're going to take you out of being present, and you're going to lose your edge. You're going to lose your confidence. You're going to lose your ability to come back and have this discussion. And it's through a discussion is where you're going to come in and actually be able to change somebody's mind. I think of, so I mentioned I helped start the Oxygen channel. I was in New York, and my number two, head of operations, he was my number two. Phenomenal, phenomenal young man. He's now in the C-suite at a very large nonprofit in New York. What a winner. The first time he was negotiating a contract for carting services. Carting, if you're not familiar with that term, in New York, they're just garbage pickup. It's very mobbed up in New York. You've probably heard lots of people have gone to jail. Carting service, trash pickup, very, very dangerous business to be in. So in our building, and what happens is the carting company will get a whole building. So if you're a commercial, if you're in a building, you really kind of have no choice to go with them, with whoever the building recommends as the carting company. Strongly recommends. So I get this call. So at Oxygen, in this one floor, so no offices had ceilings on them. And it was, what can I say? It was those days. It was in the 90s. It seemed like a great idea. And I got all these calls, and like, oh my God, Anthony was just threatened. My number two, he was just threatened. This guy said he was going to kill him if we changed the carting services. I'm like, holy cow, all right, let me go up there. Let me go see what's going on. Let me go wading in here. And again, I've slept with the boss's son. Like, I can handle a carting company coming in and threatening me. It's all right. It's all easy. It's all downhill from there. I go in there, and the moment I walk in, I can see, wow, Anthony is afraid. I can see it on his face. He's afraid. His emotions have taken over. He's now no longer able to come in and be able to negotiate. I said, hey, John, how's it going? Nice to see you. Brought up some waters. Figure we need it. Said to him, I said, all right, so, and what had happened was we signed a contract with John's company to do the carting. The building comes back and revokes their ability, revokes them being the carting company for the building. Now, we have a signed contract. I said to John, John, he goes, you've got a contract. You have to honor this. I said, you betcha, John. You betcha. We'll honor that contract. You betcha. I said, he's like, Anthony's here telling me that we're going to go back to waste management, that you're not going to use us. We've got a signed contract. That's BS. He's like a lunatic. And I said, sure, okay, John. Yep, we'll walk me through how this is going to work. We'll use your services. Who owns the dock? How are you going to get your trucks in to take out my garbage? So I'm totally willing to stay with you. Totally willing to stay with you. But how are you going to come in and get that garbage out? Eventually, there's going to be a point when you're not going to be able to service us because the company, because Waste Management owns the dock now. I said, John, where'd you blow it with the building? This isn't us. Look, I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm willing to hang with you. But you got a contract in there that says that you got to be able to do the job. And if you don't, then we're going to dump you. I said, so how long is this going to take until that happens? A month? Because you've lost the dock. You've lost the building. John, I'm sorry, but tell me what happened. This has got to be awful. And turns out, wasn't enough issues going on, and he lost the building. And he's like, look, Val, but I bought all these bins to take care of you. Like, there's that cash money out. I said, John, I hear you. I'll take care of that. I will get you reimbursed. Oxygen Media will reimburse you for those, because we're really looking forward to working with you. I will get that money. You don't have to deal with the building management. I will go to them and get the money from them to pay us back for them jerking us around. and jerking you around. We walked out there, big hugs, big hugs. Sat down with Anthony afterwards. Got to stay present. Got to keep those emotions under control. And what I would say is as we think about when things go off the rails, know what your hot buttons are. Know what your hot buttons are. What's going to trigger you? And I talked with Anthony about that. And he said, I was prepared for everything except a death threat. And I said, okay, all right, I can understand that. But if somebody is to that level, is he really going to kill you over carding services? And then we laughed and said, yeah, actually that is a possibility. Getting rid of a little bit of tension there. But understand, the moment your emotions take over, it's all over. Because now they rule the day, and you can't be in the moment, you can't be present, and you can't do that if-then of going back and forth. Breathe deep. Slow your voice down. Slow the roll down. Slow the outside. I lean back. I ask questions. Questions that I know the answer for, and let the other person blah, 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 so that I can get in my head and go, all right, God, did she just make me so angry? But I'm not focused on that. I'm now focused on the fact of how I can come back and get back in the moment, let it go. I'm going to step outside myself. I'm going to step outside of myself, outside of what's angering me, so that I can come back and not punch this person in the face, even though they wholeheartedly deserve it. I'll go punch a wall afterwards, but so I can be in the moment and be back to having a conversation so I can come back in and try to get my way. I've got a couple resources for you. There's a book out there called Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In. It's by these guys, Roger Fisher and William Ury. And The Art of Negotiation, How to Improvise Agreement in a Chaotic World by Michael Wheeler. I have found them to be both very, very effective. One more question. Hold on. Don't turn that camera off. How do you get your team to help you prepare to negotiate when you are preparing for a meeting where you need to resolve an issue with a client? By God, you tell them, get on board. What I tell my team, go in there. I need you to go in there because I'm going to have you negotiate this. It's amazing how with a little bit of pressure, they're going to come in and step up. And what I will say is this. I also come in and say, if I'm doing the negotiation, in many instances, I may not come in and ask them to help me. I come in and tell them, I need you to do this. This is the information that I need. Please get that for me. Now I want you to come in and negotiate with me so that I can understand both sides. I'll have them negotiate with me, and then I'll negotiate with them. How do you handle a boss that's degrading and already feels you are overpaid? Woo! Ooh, you get yourself another job, plain and simple. Anybody that's degrading, you don't need that. And if you are overpaid, the one piece I would say, and I'm being flippant, I apologize. I know I'm being flippant because that's not always possible, is it? What it is I got to say that my guess is he or she is underpaid. There's a hostility there. If they're degrading you, there's a hostility there that chances are you're being paid more than he or she is. So that's the issue. So what I would probably try to do for degrading, that's an issue that they've got with themselves, and they're taking it out on you. So yes, I'm being flippant in the fact of saying look for something else, but I would also come in and say, is there anything that I can help you negotiate with your boss that would help you? What can I do to come in and help you to help you with my boss's boss? All right, folks. So thank you so much again for joining me today. What I will say is, again, get out of your head. You need to focus on what you need to do to get confidence. Prepare. 10 hours for every hour. Think about that. 10 hours for every hour. In effective communications, figure out your if-then. If they say this, I will respond to this. Stay present. Stay present. And when things go off the rails, try to keep your emotions out of it. Try to contain them. Know what your hot buttons are before you ever go in there. Don't let somebody trigger them. And Keep your emotions contained so you can stay in the moment. Other than that, folks, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much to ABWA. It was an honor to represent you this morning. And again, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you to the NOLA Chamber of Commerce. Bye.